John Logsdon, and I'm Professor Emeritus of Political Science and International Affairs at the Space Policy Institute, Elliott School of International Affairs, George Washington University. Well, as he entered the White House on January the 20th, 1961, Kennedy really had not thought much about space, and he probably knew less about space than any other of the major topics that would face him as president. He had used the failure of the Eisenhower administration to respond to Sputnik in a very aggressive, active way as a symbol of Eisenhower's failure as president. So he made a lot of speeches pointing at space during the campaign, but those were just rhetoric. And the biggest symbol of his lack of priority for space was that he kind of delegated to his vice president, Lyndon Johnson, lead responsibility for space in the Kennedy administration. It was kind of give Lyndon something to do so he doesn't get into the important stuff. April the 12th, 1961, Yuri Gagarin was launched. There was universal positive reaction to that achievement around the world, a sense of shock and kind of dismay in the United States, particularly among the Congress, of why did we, after allowing the Soviet Union to be first with Sputnik, why were they also first with the first human in space? Kennedy saw that and said, we cannot by default allow the Soviet Union to do everything first in space. We've got to enter a space race with the intent of winning it. Kennedy was not a visionary. He never justified Apollo in terms of science. He very seldom talked about a future in space. And in his private conversations, there's a classic secretly tape-recorded meeting between Kennedy and most of his space people, but there's an argument between Kennedy and Jim Webb, November 21st, 1962, in which Kennedy is heard saying, I'm not that interested in space. What I'm interested in and what should be the absolute top priority is beating Russia to the moon. It's one of these things that's suppressed in historical memory, is that competing with the Soviet Union to be first on the moon was Kennedy's second choice. Even in his inaugural address, he said, let us explore the stars together. And he was serious. I'm convinced from looking rather deeply into the written record that this was something that he thought was desirable and could be done. And he spent the last 3 months of his life working with his advisor, trying to find a way to do this. Soviet Union, Khrushchev, only in early November said, maybe, I now trust you. I've got my own internal debates about going to the moon. Maybe going together makes sense. But with his assassination, Apollo became a memorial to a fallen president. Any chance of it being a cooperative enterprise went away. I mean, it's remarkable in the kind of mythology of Apollo that this episode is so little noted. If Kennedy had lived, there's no telling what might have happened. I think in Kennedy's terms it was a success. I think it's had, on balance, a negative impact on the development of the U.S. space program, because what do you do after you've been to the moon? We haven't answered that question yet. I mean, Richard Nixon said, I don't want to continue to spend that much money, lower the space budget, so I don't want to use Saturn V's anymore. I certainly don't want to continue going to the moon, so let's start over. And the start over was building the space shuttle, decision made in January of 1972. So Apollo, in terms of the space program, was a dead end. But it created in NASA an organization with facilities all over the country, with strong political base, with an expectation of dramatic things that really hasn't gone away. So, I mean, NASA's been trying since Apollo to do grand things with inadequate money. Well, there's a cliche. If we can send a man to the moon, why can't we? And pick your favorite problem. And that's pretty deeply ingrained in the American kind of political culture. I think it's the wrong question. I've come to the conclusion, and I wrote a book called The Decision to Go to the Moon that came out in 1970, which stopped with just the decision and not the events following May the 25th of 61. And in that book, kind of in the afterglow of Apollo, I said, yes, that kind of approach might be able to be applied to other large-scale national problems. I now think that Apollo was a unique thing, that the circumstances that made it possible were specific to the particular situation, the particular time, and it doesn't serve as a model for other large-scale projects. Well, the historian Arthur Schlesinger Jr., who was in the White House with Kennedy in the 70s, and again, I think a little bit in the afterglow of the success of Apollo, said when the history of the 20th century is written centuries into the future, one thing that will certainly be remembered is that it was the first time that humans left this planet and went someplace else. I hope that's true. We certainly haven't gone any place since Apollo, and I think it's time to go, but we'll see. I think the image of an astronaut and the American flag on the moon is one of our leading symbols of nationalism, of patriotism. Right after the flag and the bald eagle is a space image. So I think it is part of the cultural heritage of this country that we did this, and we're proud of having done that. And then maybe even more profound in its impact was the picture taken by Apollo 8 astronaut Bill Anders of the beautiful Earth rising over the barren moon, looking back at this planet. And I think that had a profound impact on our perception of our place in the solar system, in the universe, and the need to take care of this planet. Well, the 21st century and the centuries to come, I mean, young people alive in 2011 are probably going to be alive in 2111. I mean, it's not just this century, given the progress of technology. I mean, I'm kind of a dinosaur in terms of things like information technology. Without an understanding of science and technology and its uses, you're basically incapacitated to live in a modern world. So it doesn't mean you have to be a rocket engineer. It doesn't have to mean you win a Nobel Prize. But if you don't understand one of the major forces shaping society in the 21st century, and that is science and technology, you are less able to deal successfully with the world you live in.